A big thank you comes to you today from Dead Rabbit via Patreon for his long support of the channel. Atraxa versus Kadric with no ramp at all. Okay, we can hope here that the Sylvan Library will survive, so we'll keep that one. Put the Yarrick away. Okay, we draw into Narset, Parter of Veils, so I'm going to shock in the breeding pool here so that we can save our shuffle effect for after we've seen the top cards with the Sylvan Library. Alright, get into another fetch, and obviously see another couple of cards on the top of the Sylvan Library. Alright, there's a Displacer Kitten and a Command Tower, so yeah, let's keep the Displacer Kitten, we'll put the Command Tower back on top. And let's go for a shuffle with the Bloodstained Mire in for some blue mana. We can get down the Narset. And then it's a -2 for the Narset, hopefully get some card advantage here. Okay, an Ephemerate, so we're getting into all of our Flicker stuff. None of the ramp, unfortunately. And there is a Solemn Offering onto the Sylvan Library, so we got one use out of it at least. Got some removal out of their hand, as well as getting some card advantage. And now we see a Muldrifter, which will be good with the Displacer Kitten, so let's minus down on the Narset before we decide on anything. Okay, we've got some choices now. The Eternal Wanderer, Imperial Seal, a Farewell, and Teferi's Protection. Let's go for the Tutor. And then again going to shock down the land, and let's get down the Kitten. And this way we'll be able to use this to flicker the Narset at some point and put some more loyalty counters on that. So down comes Kadric. Don't think I've played against this one, so it'll be interesting to see what our opponent does. We see Anguished Unmaking. So why don't we do the Muldrifter Ephemerate trick here. We can hold control in order to evoke this down and hold priority. We'll go evoke on the stack first, then we've definitely got something to respond to. Now we can go Ephemerate onto the Muldrifter with the evoke trigger on the stack. And Displacer Kitten will allow us to flicker the Narset. Could have flickered the Muldrifter as well, of course. But that would be a waste of the Ephemerate and means that we wouldn't get the rebound. So we draw 2 to the Muldrifter twice, and that evoke will not matter anymore. Okay, Misty Rainforest can get us into something with the Imperial Seal, maybe just some ramp we can finally get into here. So we want a black source in the Bayou. Play the Imperial Seal, losing some more life. Might as well flicker the Muldrifter, which draws us even more cards. And then I'll just go for a Sky Shroud claim here. Our opponent seems to be going quite slow. So do we even need to bother minusing on the Narset if we're just going to have to discard down to hand size? I think I'll leave the Narset's loyalty alone here. And let's get rid of a Birds of Paradise drawn into the Solitude, which we can exile something with at instant speed. Have to get rid of the Anguished Unmaking for that though. A Rem Carolus. And then they can afford the 1 to make a copy of that. That's a flyer with haste, so yeah, this is why I held back the Narset. Okay, they're just swinging in at us. I think even if they were swinging in at the Narset there, we would have just allowed it, because we can easily put loyalty back on there. So Kadric having them exile the copy at the end of the turn. And with the Ephemerate back into play, we will cast this. Might as well get some more card draw with the Muldrifter. And that does trigger the Displacer Kitten, but there's no point pointing it at the Muldrifter multiple times. Alright, so we draw 2 again. We know what's on top of our library, and there we go, getting into the ramp finally. And there's a Strip Mine as well, so we could blow up our opponent's white mana. And I have been told that I need to not go easy on my opponents, but I really just don't see the joy. Where are we here? Yeah, I really don't see the joy in blowing up people's mana like that, so let's flicker the Muldrifter again. Wasn't expecting to get this much use out of Muldrifter, in all honesty. Now we see an Oko, speaking of not going easy. So we'll make another green mana in Savannah, and let's start getting these Triomes into play if we can. And we do have Field of the Dead in place, it's turn 1 of course, so that will begin to trigger at this point. And yeah, let's just go for the Oko. Flicker the Muldrifter again, because that is a non-creature spell. And we draw into 2 of the cards that were on top of our library previously in the game. Turn our opponent's commander into an elk so they can't make copies of things. And then let's minus on the Narset just for the hell of it. We're going to have to discard down to hand size here anyway. Okay, there's... yeah, Vamp Tutor will do. So one thing we could do is evoke something in with Solitude and then cast the Vamp Tutor at instant speed to flicker it again like we did with the other evoke, Muldrifter. Yeah, I don't think we need Night's Whisper or the Baleful Strix. And we'll get rid of some mana as well. Okay, Quintorius now, obviously not triggering the Cadric because it doesn't have any abilities. But I don't think they would have been able to do much with this Quintorius anyway. And now the 2-3 goes in at the Oko, which they don't have much chance of dealing with, I don't think. Alright, and Quintorius does exile this, so they get a 3-2 Spirit at the end of the turn. And we draw into another land, so... yeah, let's go for this Yarok and try and double up on all these ETBs that we're going to keep getting for the rest of the game, apparently. And then we'll go for the Solitude by exiling the Anguished Unmaking. And that is going to evoke twice, which I didn't account for thanks to the Yarok, but it doesn't matter. We'll just put evoke on the stack twice, because obviously evokes an ETB as well. So exile Quintorius, exile the Flyer, and then with that on the stack, we go for Vamp Tutor, and that will trigger the Displacer Kitten. And yeah, our opponent sees that we're about to just do a one-sided board wipe pretty much. We would have got Solitude into play again for 2 more exiles and just wipe their board pretty much, and at that point we've got a decent lock on them. We can just turn in sideways until they go down. Didn't see any Atraxa in that one, so we'll play again. Up against Errant and Giada this time, one that I've had some interest in myself. Yeah, some decent amount of colours and ramp there, so just because of the Imperial Seal, we'll try it. Alright, our opponent just holding up mana, so we'll assume that there's plenty of counter magic in this deck. Yeah, maybe should have got down the Mana Crypt actually before now, but they had 1 mana held up previously. Let's try the Mana Crypt here, see if they want to counter it. We've only got 4 cards in hand, so we'll assume that, yeah, there we go, we got rid of 2 cards from their hand. They Force of Negation, and they exiled Dream Trawler is a good one to get rid of. Alright, so 2 cards in hand, 3 mana held up, and we keep drawing into lands. So, yeah, let's go Imperial Seal. I could have done that last turn, but I wanted to see if I was not going to draw into a land, and clearly we did. We don't have Cavern of Souls in this deck, so yeah, maybe just go for what we went for in the last game, a Skyshroud Claim. If they want to counter that, then so be it. And then our opponent, as you would expect, Errant and Giada coming down into play with Flash. So still 2 cards in hand. They can play cards off the top, of course, though. So we get hit for 2 points of commander damage. And then doing something during our upkeep by the looks of it. So maybe have, what's the fairy called that looks at our hand? I can't remember. Maybe that's what they've got. Yep, that's the one. Vendilion Click, so going to look at our hand and shuffle something away, so probably get rid of the Skyshroud Claim here. They can choose to not put anything into our library, instead giving us the Gilded Drake, so yeah, that's going to go pretty well with all their flying stuff, but taking away their commander isn't bad, so let's go for that. Alright, so we take their commander away, swap it out for the Gilded Drake, can see another land on top of our library, so let's take advantage and go for the Arid Mesa. We can get another Triome down here, I think. I'm not bothered about the Darksteel Mutation. Into another land on top, a Strip Mine. A Sword of Feast and Famine for our opponent. 1 card in hand now, and it's 6 damage for the rest of the game until we can get into something. I just saw an Umezawa's Jitte on top of our opponent's library, I think it was. I'm not sure if we were supposed to see that. Flashed up for a split second. Alright, so do we just hold up the Errant and Giada here? We could hurt our opponent's mana by going for Strip Mine, I suppose. Let's go Darksteel Mutation onto our creature. And they have to flicker that to get the Darksteel Mutation off it, then they give it back to us and we can steal something else from them. Strip Mine onto the Adarka Waste might be okay. It does mean that we're not going for Atraxa next turn though, so yeah, well they've only got 1 card available to them. I think we'll just leave it and try and go for the Atraxa next turn. We'll hold back their commander as a blocker just in case we are eager to block the Sword of Feast and Famine. Okay, and yeah, there's the Umezawa's Jitte that we knew about, so luckily seeing it the next turn so that our opponent isn't at too much of a disadvantage that we know about that. Obviously didn't play around it anyway. Yeah, 1 card in hand. Do we give them back their commander? I don't think I'm really interested in that. Let's just take the damage here. They will have protection against our commander, which is noteworthy. Okay, and it keeps showing me cards over here. I'm trying not to look, but we do know they have a brainstorm on top now. Get rid of the plains. Okay, there's a Utopia Sprawl on top, so yeah, it's just our commander here, I think. Not taking commander damage at least, so if we can start gaining life from that thing, then that'll be good. So down comes the Atraxa. Our opponent didn't have any counter magic apparently. Let's see here. Fierce Guardianship is usually a good instant to take. And yeah, our opponent scoops to that. I mean, look through there, I'm sure you can use your imagination as to what we would have taken. Playing against Kark and Sakashima this time. Just up on landers, probably not good enough, so we mulligan. And okay, into some ramp there, so don't have any means of card draw. We do have some controls, so we'll try it. Get rid of Shriekmaw. I don't want to be playing rocks into open mana. Alright, and there's a green source, is really good, so get down a Triome with that. And there we see the Kark the Thumbless. Okay, Birds of Paradise isn't awful either. Might be able to get a lightning bolt or something out of our opponent's hand. Obviously I don't know what they're running. Just get the shock landing tapped. Want to surprise my opponent with these rocks and hope that they don't have any counter magic for us. Because if we can get an untapped land next turn, we can actually get down the Atraxa. And they are tapping out into the Sakashima, which comes down as a copy of the Kark, of course. Okay, we don't get into a land, so we can't go for the Atraxa. Maybe Toxic Deluge is just the best thing to do here. So let's go for the Chrome Mox. We can kill two birds with one stone, so if we get down a land next turn, we can still go for Atraxa. Put Dam underneath the Mox. Play the Mana Crypt. And then we can go black mana with the Birds of Paradise, because we're going to go for the Toxic Deluge here for 2 life. We'll wipe the board. And our opponent didn't have any free counter magic, which is good, so now we can go for the Reclamation Sage and hurt their mana a little bit, go after the Mox Amber. Won't be able to tap that down for mana anyway, but if they get a land next turn, then the Mox Amber will start tapping for mana, because they'll get down the Kark most likely. Oh, and we can't get down Atraxa next turn, of course, because I blew up the Birds of Paradise. And we don't have double green for the Eternal Witness, so we can't get the fetch either. Our opponent does manage to play out the Kark yet again, a couple of mana away from the Sakashima though. Okay, a Knight's Whisper isn't terrible, so use our black and colourless mana. Keep as many different colours held up, because obviously we don't know what we're drawing into. Rafine's Tower isn't terrible. Lauren doesn't do anything, so we'll just play the land and pass. It's likely that they'll get down an artifact that cares about coin flips, so saving the Lauren's probably a good idea. As well as holding up double blue, they might not want to cast a spell that they actually like into this, which could buy us a turn. Yeah, and they're about to cast something and then untapping lands, so not sure if they're debating whether or not to do it into the double blue. Alright, Impulsive Pilferer might be testing to see if we're holding up priority, which we are. And a Legion Loyalist we'll pretend to look at as well. Okay, and then an Expedite goes onto the Impulsive Pilferer, so they might draw a couple of cards here. Instead, just counter their own Expedite, because they lose the coin flip on the Kark, which is good for us, obviously. They hold up double blue themselves with 3 cards in hand, so they'll be eagerly awaiting the Atraxa, I imagine. But we do have to get the counter magic out of their hand if we do have the chance to play our commander here. Right, Demonic Tutor won't do it. So I think we're 3 for 3 on going after a Skyshroud claim this game, but yeah, as tempting as Jeweled Lotus is, it's much more of a blowout if our commander gets countered, so again, we'll fix our colours with a Skyshroud claim, or at least try to. Alright, and they decided to give us that, so let's see here, we can go Tropical Island, and let's go Breeding Pool as well, so that means that we're holding up the double blue again, which I do think they might be playing around. Otherwise there's no reason for us to shock in a Breeding Pool. Alright, Infernal Plunge, sacrificing the Impulsive Pilferer will make a treasure token, and it will make red 3 times, or it will get countered. So they might get 6 mana, or they might get none, and they get none. They've been pretty unlucky with the Kark. This is why we wanted the back of Sakashima though, because obviously their coin flips are going to do much better if they actually manage to have the Sakashima still in play. So trying on the Expedite again. Wow, and again going back to the hands, so yeah, they're really not having any luck here. So trying again with Expedite. Okay, and this time they get a copy of it, so drawing 2 cards and holding up the double blue again. Right, and a Brightstone Ritual. So they're looking to add 4 mana here, which means they'll be able to get down the Sakashima if they manage to get it, and they do. So there they go, going in for the Sakashima again. And now we reveal that we don't have a counterspell. So they've got 4 cards in hand, one of which we know about is going to make them some mana if they decide to sacrifice the Legion Loyalist. Alright, there's the Displacer Kitten again, which isn't going to do us much good, so we have to try and get down the Atraxa and see if it does us any good here. Been a little bit too slow this game. Alright, so Atraxa managing to hit play. Alright, we've got the Vamp Tutor. Ephemera is probably a better instant. 1 creature in the Mother of Machines. Imperial Seal is the sorcery. I don't know if I've made a land for the turn actually. So let's go Scrubland, and yeah, we'll go Lightning Greaves. If we haven't made a land for the turn, then we can get down the Lightning Greaves. Otherwise, I should go for the Sol Ring, I think. Well, we'll say done on that. Yeah, and I didn't think we made a land, so down that comes. Lightning Greaves does switch off the Ephemerate, so maybe going for the Imperial Seal and holding up Ephemera is alright here. So we can go for the Solitude. Let's grab that. And then why don't we Ephemerate here, and we can put the Solitude into our hand and get rid of the Sakashima. So down comes Atraxa again, and we definitely grab the Solitude. Song of the Dryads is a good enchantment because we'll be able to get rid of a commander permanently, especially against Izzet. Fierce Guardianship is a good counterspell to hold up. We can go Strip Mine after the land if people want me to play more Cutthroat. And that is all we've got with regards to our options there. So with the Solitude, we'll get rid of the Lauren. And Solitude is going to be able to exile the Sakashima this turn, because that's going to be more difficult for our opponent to recast. So that comes down. Can't do any Evoke shenanigans, unfortunately, but we can have them not have a turn with Sakashima in play. And we've got Fierce Guardianship held up now to try and protect our Atraxa. So Solitude gets sacrificed to Evoke, and hopefully we'll make it another turn without our opponent comboing off. So swing in with the Reclamation Sage. I'm happy with them to block with either creature here, because it means they've got less sack fodder for the card that's in their hand. And we can obviously grab the Solitude back with the Eternal Witness. They do know that we've got a Fierce Guardianship in our hand. Okay, Clever Impersonator on the Kark doesn't cheat the Legend rule. This is why we wanted rid of the Sakashima. It can copy the Atraxa, of course, so that's what their aim is. So revealing 10 cards to us, let's have a look. It's a Jeweled Lotus, which is the only artifact, so they take that. They've got Anger, Shape Sharer, Glasspool Mimic, Windfall, Rite of Flame, Trinket Mage, some lands and a Ritual. Alright, and we can see the cards they've kept there, so they cast the Rite of Flame straight away into the Kark, and they do manage to get copies of that, so I'm going to make some additional mana, and that takes them into a Jeweled Lotus. So yeah, I think we just go for the counter on that. Like I said before, they do know that we have the Fierce Guardianship, just like we know what cards they have in hand. Alright, so now it's Desperate Ritual, just forcing them to play more cards here. They want their commander in play, they're going to have to work for it. They do start winning flips here, so Desperate Ritual, making some more mana. So playing the Anger as opposed to their commander. Not much good to them in play, but it is a good sack outlet, so yeah. Or sack fodder, so Infernal Plunge being cast. And all their creatures do have haste now. And they've won the flip again, so that is 6 additional mana from the Infernal Plunge. Didn't have any luck in the early game, but they're getting into it now. And now it's a Spark Double, so maybe that goes on the Atraxa again. And it does. So now revealing a Tribute Mage, Mana Vault, Fiery Gambit, Shadow Rift, a Mox Diamond, and a Mana Crypt. Okay, it looks like they actually forgot to take a land there, so that might hurt them, but they kept Mana Crypt and cast that straight away. Still got 6 red mana floating here. And you can tell how much worse this turn would have been had we not have got rid of their commander. Fiery Gambit goes against our Atraxa, and they miss on that thankfully, but they do get to cast it again. So there we go again with the exact same targets. Alright, and they do get to land it this time. Okay, and totally whiff on that, so Fiery Gambit not dealing any damage. And that means that we've got an Atraxa during our next turn. They've got 4 cards in hand, 2 of which we know about here, of course. But all their creatures have haste thanks to the anger in the bin. So are we fishing for more removal at this point? We can get rid of their Kark, force them to recast that again. We'll take 16 damage, minus the 7 is only 9, so I think this is fine. Okay, so how much damage can we do this turn is the question. Ephemerate would be nice going onto our commander. We've got to start worrying about bolts from the Mana Crypt as well. But I think Reclamation Sage will be the target for the Ephemerate because I want to be swinging in with Atraxa if I can. And obviously we can go after their Mana Crypt with that. So Reclamation Sage enters with Summoning Sickness off the Ephemerate. And we will blow up their rock, giving them less mana. Alright, now there's a Snap Mage. So we could go after a tutor with that. We could go for a board wipe if we want to. I think we will play the Strip Mine. And then let's go for the Eternal Witness. And we're going to grab back the Solitude with this. Our opponent's holding up priority here, so might have access to free counter magic. May have always had access to that, but decided to let down the Atraxa so that they could take advantage of the clone effects. We do have Snap Mage to counter their counter, because obviously we've got Fierce Guardianship available to us. And while our opponent's thinking, the way that these clone effects, yeah, they don't target, so putting Shroud on with the Lightning Greaves won't really matter. I was just thinking of whether or not we should go for Greaves to protect against the clones, but it doesn't work, so... Alright, our opponent scoops at that. They know that we've got answers for their board here. I don't know what they're assuming we're going to do. They should wait for us to target with the E-Witness first, but yeah, they decide to scoop it there. So that's a pretty good series of games with Atraxa. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Huge thank you to the patrons for supporting so consistently as ever. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.